Hello viewers and welcome. This is the Rays of Hope and we are glad that you are with us today. And just to remind us that Rays of Hope is about, encouraging, resilience, courage, and inspiring hope. And more so in the times that we are living in. I'm Lucy Waweru, happy to be your host. And remember, you can stream live on CAC TV Kenya on Facebook and on CAC TV Kenya on YouTube. Today, we are discussing the topic, vigilance during the pandemic. Indeed, we need to remain vigilant because there's so many things that are happening around us. And today, to help us understand that topic, I'm joined by this great panel of specialists, and it's so good to have you.
Thank you.
On my right is Dr. Andrew Gashie, who is a medical doctor, a specialist in pathology, who works at Kenyatta National Hospital and also Nairobi West Hospital. Dr. It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
Please say hello to the viewer and any more introduction?
Hello, viewers and listeners. I'm glad to have you. My name, as you have been told, is Dr. Andrew Gashie. I am a pathologist, and also I work at Kenyatta National Hospital and also at Nairobi West Hospital. Welcome, and let us be together.
Wonderful. Asante sana daktari.
Thank you.
On my extreme right is Reverend Jero Washira, who is a minister at PCL Oresho and is also a counseling psychology. Reverend, it's a joy to have you here.
It's good to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful.
I look forward to a wonderful discussion on the topic.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And so, Karibu, now we indulge into that. We want to know, and maybe Daktari.
Yes.
We're talking about vigilance during the pandemic.
Yes.
It's been 1 year, 6 months that we are in this. We thought it was just going to end. We thought we would wish it away. We prayed and all these things.
Yes.
And here we are, 1 year, 6 months, and still moving on. Where are we at as far as the pandemic is concerned globally and even locally?
Thank you, Reverend. Yes, indeed, it's good to remind our viewers and listeners that the pandemic is still with us. And when we talk of the pandemic, we are talking of the COVID-19 disease. I think at this particular time, Reverend, everybody is aware that this disease is with us. It has been with us for the last 1 year and 6 months. And apparently, it is not going anywhere. Sorry, this may sound a bit discouraging, but it is the truth. Just to take our listeners back to a bit of statistics, right now, Reverend, the total worldwide infection rate, it has affected about 233 million people. That's a rough estimate. Where in our country, it has affected about 241,000 people. And of course, as per the government statistics now, the number of deaths is 4,800. Worldwide, it is about 4.6 million people who have died. And therefore, we are talking of a serious pandemic. Unfortunately, what we have realized about this pandemic, it keeps on coming every now and then with what we are calling a wave. In fact, for those who have been very keen, we are now in what we call the fourth wave of the disease. The very first wave started sometimes in March when the disease started in our country because it had been recorded earlier on. For a bit of history, we know this disease started in China at a place called Wuhan, and there is no single country in the world which has not been affected. Right now, we are in what we call the fourth wave, and I'm sure viewers, quite a number of you have heard of the changing nature of this disease. That initially, we started with a virus which was very clear in the way it was presenting, cough, fever, all those symptoms, sneezing. But this virus has been changing over time. And we know now, right now, for those who are keen to know, we are in what we call a variant we are referring to as the Delta variant, which has a totally different pattern from the virus we started with. So really what we are saying is that the pandemic has been with us. It is continuing to be with us. Fortunately, there has been some solutions which we'll be discussing this afternoon on where we are in terms of its management. Fortunately, also, we have understood a lot about this pandemic because we are not where we were a year ago. And we know that right now, the beauty is that in addition to the measures that we were taking to prevent ourselves from getting this disease, we have a vaccine that is available. And I think it is a very big step that has, that came to help us in fighting this disease. And I'm sure Everett will be talking a lot more about this vaccine.
Sure.
Right from the word go, I'd like to ask our viewers, have you been vaccinated? Because what we are saying is that the disease can be and has been controlled through the vaccine. I know there has been a lot of what we call hesitancy. Hesitancy simply means that people have been reluctant to take the vaccine for one reason or the other. There has been a lot of misinformation concerning this vaccine, with some people even claiming, Leverett, that this vaccine has been brought for a purpose, probably to control the world population, probably to make sure that some, some races are even, exterminated. And some people have even argued that those who have received the vaccine will probably not live for more than 2 years.
Actually, we've heard that, Daktari, and we want to engage on that later in depth, because some have told us that eventually we are becoming monkeys. so really, I wanted to tell us how true that is.
I must say this. A lot of people have become experts in science. All of a sudden, people know that there is a DNA that can be changed, and therefore some people are saying, even if we don't die, our form will change into some monstrous beings that cannot be defined. So when you say of a monkey, some people think will be changed. But although we are going to discuss a little more about this, I would like people to really realize that, in my own view, that this is a good solution to a situation that was getting out of hand. Remember, probably about a year ago, we would ask ourselves, do you know a friend of a friend of a friend who has suffered from this disease? I don't think there is any home in Kenya which has not had a victim of COVID, and I mean a death. So, and also sometimes back, it used to be seen to be a disease of the urbanized area. We would, anytime you go into the rural areas, people would even run away because you are the person you are the carrier of the disease. Unfortunately, right now, we know that the disease has actually gone rural. There are so many people who are affected and who are dying of this disease. And that is why we would want to urge people, now that there is a scientific way of controlling this disease, can we move ahead and be able to protect ourselves further? I know there are those measures that we have been taking of, sanitizing, washing our hands. Of course, the masks, they are still very protective. And for the time being, we cannot do away with those measures. However, the vaccine is very, very dramatic. Leverett, I would like to just give some statistics.
Maybe before then, so that I can tie that up with the psychological part of it, because what you have started talking about also earlier is about the hesitancy and all that. And I think they are linked to how we view things also. Maybe what is going on in us, in our lives, and all that. Sometimes maybe it's not that we don't want it, but psychologically, Reverend Jeru, where are we at now, 1.5 years later?
COVID. I think I'll start from where you started, that we have been experiencing waves of COVID. And these waves come, and just when you think that we are just about to go over it, another wave comes. And the mind is created in a way that it has a response to threatening situations. You either fight or flight. But this is a wave that is invisible. Something that comes, you don't know how you caught it, but we are all vulnerable to it. And what that creates is a lot of anxiety and a lot of frustration in people. And because they live in fear of another wave. And so this creates a kind of a chronic stress in people. And because of that, we find that there is what we are calling COVID stress. And people are going through that at the moment. It is presenting itself in different ways. Of course, we have the economic devastation. Everyone is going through it. We have hopelessness. We have uncertainty about tomorrow. And this informs people even on the way they plan ahead for the future. We have people who have actually frozen. They can't operate. They can't leave the house. They can't do things they used to do because of uncertainty about the future and even fear of this unseen enemy. This is happening in people's lives. And that is something we need to understand at the moment, because it creates stress and also it affects the way people make decisions. People can't plan ahead for future. I think we've all realized the gravity of life. Life is very short. And so there are people who cannot even plan ahead for their future. Another way is that people are also affected in a way that they're not able to make good judgments and also solve their own problems. Because of being overwhelmed by the situation, we find people resorting to killing one another and some taking away their lives. These are impacts that are caused by the COVID and the length of time that it has taken to overcome this pandemic. So that's where we are at the moment. And also, there's a good part of it, because we are not where we were in the beginning. Because at least now, as Dr. says, that COVID is not a new thing anymore. We have more information flowing. We have more people who have been infected or affected. And so there's a sense of community that people now at least understand how these things are happening. I remember initially when we had COVID victims, we would go for barriers with masks, and sometimes we encouraged to put PPEs. And those guys who came dramatically with white stuff, and it was so we were so afraid. But now we no longer fear, because we have a bit more information, even in the barriers. We know that now dead bodies cannot transmit. So we are somewhere, and at least now we are talking about a vaccine which has been found. So we're in a better place, because there is a solution to that gives us hope for the future. So we are not where we were initially, but we're not out of the woods yet, because we still have fear, and fear associated with COVID, especially when it comes to vaccination. People are not sure what it's all about. There are questions asked about how fast the vaccine was developed, and all the conspiracy theories about what the vaccine may mean. And I think that is what is preventing people from taking the vaccination. So we are not where we are, but we are not out of the woods yet. Psychologically, people are still grappling with stress. People losing contacts, isolation, because you still can't do things that you used to do before. But as we are in the race of hope today, there is hope for tomorrow, because God has answered by giving us the vaccine, which you are talking about.
One of another, the point where I said, we are not yet out of the woods.
Yes.
We are not where we were.
Yes.
So that gives us hope. But yet we are not out yet.
Yes.
Hence the need to remain vigilant.
Yes.
And that's why we are saying vigilance during this time of the pandemic.
Yes.
Daktari, back to you. Our health is our wealth, and we prayed, and God answers in His own way.
Yes.
I think you're also a man of faith. Do you think there's a conflict between faith and science?
Yes.
And because maybe somehow that's why we are also struggling with that, because maybe we take them as parallel. Do you think they are related?
Thank you, Reverend. And I think that's a very valid question.
Yeah.
First of all, I like the concept of vigilance. And I like what Reverend has brought out, that we are not yet out of the woods. In other words, we are still in the pandemic, but there has been a lot of changes associated with this. And one of the things that has happened every day is that we have come to a level of acceptance that yes, the COVID is there, but life must go on. Must go on. And therefore, when certain changes like vaccines come, we really appreciate that something is happening. And I would really want, you have asked a very relevant question. Is there a conflict between what is spiritual and what is scientific? And my very straight answer is that there is really no conflict. In fact, I would want to state that we all prayed for this vaccine. And now, in my own opinion, God has actually answered our prayer. Remember, we cannot dictate how God is going to answer our prayers. Yeah? We all of us probably would have wishing, oh, God is so good, He will take away the disease. But sometimes, remember, sometimes God doesn't take us out of our trouble. What God does, He gives us the power to go through the trouble. And probably part of the power that He's giving us, it is actually this vaccine. Remember when the disease started, and in particular, when the first case was recorded in March 2020 in Kenya, I think we all went into prayer. God, this is a pandemic, we don't know how it will be, we don't know what it will do, and we were all praying for it. I see the vaccine, which is a form of science, as God's answer to our prayer. So there is not really any conflict. And I think what our people really need to understand is that the vaccine, and also probably other ways of knowing more about this disease, is a God's way of telling us, I am still in control. After all, God controls science. He is the creator of the science. And He has created it for a purpose, for the human being to be assisted through that science. So the one thing that we must accept is that there is no conflict between what is spiritual and what is scientific. And some people may argue, and the Reverend has brought it up very, very clearly, that how comes this vaccine was processed so fast? How comes it came out so fast?
And we still have HIV.
And we still have HIV, we have malaria, we have cancer, where we have never found some form of control in form of vaccine. The truth of the matter is that a lot of resources, when this pandemic came, it affected literally the entire world. And people, including the scientists, went into work. Another thing is a lot of resources have been poured or have been put into the pandemic to try and control it. And because of the scientific advancement, the technology that was being used to make the vaccines 50 years ago, for example, the smallpox, is very different from the technology we are using nowadays. And what could be researched within 7 years, because to develop a vaccine used to take about 7 years. But because now of the new technology, something that could happen in 7 years can actually happen in 6 months. And that explains why we are having a rapid processing of what is necessary to put up a vaccine. So people should not fear that, oh, how safe is this vaccine if it was developed over a period of 6 months or 9 months. The truth of the matter is that it is very, very safe. In fact, much safer than the vaccines that were being developed 50 years ago. So my take is that there is no conflict in terms of the science and what is spiritual. God has provided a way of overcoming this problem. Yes, the virus will still be with us, but with the time, we shall be able to overcome it, or at least we will be in control. And what we are saying, the moment we are able to achieve about 70% of vaccination, then I think even with confidence we can be removing our masks. Because what is happening is that for every person you vaccinate, you reduce the rate of transmission of the disease. So it is every vaccine, one person. So vaccination of one person makes a difference.
Makes a difference.
Yes, and then now that I work in a hospital, Nairobi West Hospital, I'd like to give some statistics. In the last 1 month, when we have been experiencing the fourth wave, yes, out of every 100 patients we have been admitting, probably less than 10 of them had been vaccinated. I mean, only about, out of 10 patients, only 1 or 2 of these patients have been vaccinated. In other words, the majority of the ones we see, up to 90%, are unvaccinated. And another thing we have also noticed, Leverett, I can say with certainty, I have not seen anybody who has been fully vaccinated who has died of this disease. The ones who have been dying in the last 1 month, the majority of them have not been vaccinated. And some people may say, okay, Dr. I think you are biased, but the truth is that the same statistics are coming from many hospitals, both within our country and from outside. Yes? Another thing is that even for those people who get unwell, those people who we admit because of the infection, they stay for a much shorter period of time in the hospital, and they do not get the complications that we see. Probably at this juncture, Leverett, I would like to state it clearly that we have also noticed that quite a significant number of people who are discharged with severe COVID, who have been released from the hospital, they die after from 3 weeks up to 6 months. In other words, you may have gone to the hospital, you are treated, you are told you are cured, but then they die after that period. And why is that? Now, unfortunately, COVID is a very devastating disease. In addition to affecting your lungs, it also affects your kidneys. It affects it affects your heart. It affects the liver. It affects literally every other organ. And unfortunately, even after the virus has cleared from the body, the damage in the body may continue. And that is why we are bringing in the concept of a post-COVID management in a hospital. In other words, even when you have been treated, we would want to follow you for a duration of time to ensure that your organs are functioning well, your liver is working well, your kidneys are performing well, your heart is normal. Because quite a number of patients, even after discharge, they complicate and they die out of this disease. In fact, at Nairobi West, we have started what we call post-COVID clinic. And the whole idea is to follow up this person for a minimum of 6 years.
6 months.
6 months. 6 months. 6 months. Yeah. Thank you for the correction. Just to ensure that the organs are in good shape. The idea is to prevent further damage to the organs. And we have seen those people who are being followed up and for some duration, within 6 to 8 months, they can be given a clear certificate of health that their organs are now normal. But that post-COVID clinic is extremely important. Yes.
So vigilance.
And I think from where he talked about the theories and the reasons people are giving, I think we don't have statistics of what people are talking about.
True.
We have not seen someone who has turned into a zombie because he took a vaccine. That is baseless. But you have at least seen people who have not had acute or very severe whatever because of COVID, who have been vaccinated. And I think this is an encouragement to everybody. There is hope in the vaccine. Because when you take the vaccine, you prevent yourself from having adverse effects of COVID when you get sick. But without the vaccine, we see people dying. And especially with the last wave, which I had, I think the Delta variant, people died. And so let's not base on ourselves on theories which are baseless. Let's see that this is a grave matter and take the vaccine because God has given us a solution. And God uses people to answer to our problems. And I think one of the reasons why, again, we had the vaccine at a very fast rate is because it's a global pandemic. And I think even the Western world and all people mobilized resources to make sure that there is an answer to a problem that was threatening the whole world. I sometimes fear imagining if it was only in Africa, when they would have the same response.
Well, I would have been isolated.
Yeah, and I think they had also done some research with SARS, that's what we hear. And we were at an advanced stage. So the solution is here, and it's a God-given solution because science is godly, because God is scientific, and He has answered to our problems. So there is hope. You don't have to die of COVID. just go and take the damn vaccine. Very, very important.
Thank you. What a good way to start, wrapping up this first part of the show, because we are talking about vigilance. Yes. We are not yet out of the woods, hence the need to still remain vigilant. Yeah. The virus is still here, it's still devastating, but then God has provided solutions. That's why we want to embrace what God has already given. So as Rev says, just go get it. Go get it, and it's becoming available. And I think after this we will be discussing about how to allay the fears, and the fears that we even have as individuals about what's going on around us and all this. And we want to engage more and also see where is hope in all this. For this moment, we would like to take a short break, and we will be right back. Please don't go away.
Pre-filled Holy Communion cup is the new normal that gives churches the versatility to serve their own style of Holy Communion. Our pre-filled Holy Communion elements are sealed into a convenient single-serving container ready to use. It's easy to use and distribute while creating a safe environment with the social distancing need. We offer branded cups for your church and also offer the element for those who need it for the online service. Pre-filled communion elements provides you with a safe and hygienic way to celebrate communion. The Holy Communion elements is a first single portion serving of altar wine and wafer, red grape juice and wafer, juice and wafer. Place your order today. It is approved and highly recommended by all. Order now via WhatsApp or call us on 07999 88371 or visit our website www.holycommunionelements.com. Write us on email at communionelements@gmail.com. Holy Communion, experience the difference. 1 Corinthians 11:24-25.
Are you looking for a school, a place where you can nurture your talent?
Cause Nimpa
iko sawa, Nimpa iko sawa.
Nasoma muziki pia na film, kuna theater na pia graphic design, kuna DJ na hata animation. Karibu Nimpa ukiuza superstar. Nimpa iko sawa. Nimpa iko sawa. Greatness comes right after Nimpa
iko sawa.
Are you looking for affordable land to begin your investment journey? PCA Housing Cooperative Society Limited brings you Baraka Gardens. Baraka Gardens prime plots are located in Juja, one of Nairobi's most sought after towns for investments. The plots are located 1 kilometer from the upcoming Great Eastern Bypass and only a few meters from Juja Farm Ardhi Shopping Center. We are offering a 40 by 80 acre plot at 560,000 Kenya shillings for members and 600,000 Kenya shillings for non-members. Book yourself a plot today with a deposit of 200,000 Kenya shillings. The installments are 60,000 Kenya shillings for members and 67,000 Kenya shillings for non-members, payable within 6 months. Baraka Gardens is a ready-to-build investment with electricity and water readily available. Get in touch with us today to become part of the bustling Juja neighborhood. We have other projects in Juja Farm and Kangudo Road. Our offices are located at Muho Avenue, South C, Nairobi. For more information, contact us on 0708 145 222.
Welcome back, and we are glad to have you. Remember that today we're discussing vigilance during the pandemic, because we are still not out of the woods, yet we are better off, from where we started. And we've discussed that in the first half of this program. And we saw the different ways, the different aspects in which we should be grateful to God, because God has really taken us to this level and God has answered our prayers. But we are still not out of the woods, That's why we're saying we need to remain vigilant. Vigilant about our psychological well-being, vigilant about the medical solutions that are being given and the advice thereof. We need to be vigilant, and very happy to still have Dr. Gashie and Reverend Jero with us in studio. Reverend Jero, what is fear? And is there a positive part of fear and a fear that is not very good?
Yes, I think fear is an emotion that is God created and God given, and fear tells us that we are in danger or under threat. The way the mind is created, the mind reminds you, read something that has happened to you in fear in the past to something that has happened currently, and it alerts all your faculties that all is not well. So fear, I think fear is positive. And the fear we have right now about COVID is legitimate, because you can see people getting sick, going to the ICU, suffering and dying. So I can't say that it's not legitimate. There's reason to fear. But when you have constant fear, that's where the problem comes in. Because what happens is that you can actually be paralyzed. You can't be able to work or operate normally. Because what fear does, it prevents you from relaxing and functioning properly. And you find yourself in a situation where you're not able to do your normal activities. And excessive fear can lead to a disorder. It can be pathological. Can get what we call GAD, that generalized anxiety disorder, where you are always worrying and you're not able to function properly because of what you're going through. And especially now, since the COVID started, we have found people having mixed emotions, and part of it is fear. Fear of contracting the virus, which has kept people from doing their normal day-to-day activities. But the worst fear is actually fear to get vaccinated, because when you fear, it doesn't help at all. Sometimes you have to overcome fear by getting the facts right, because fear sometimes thrives in distorted information that we get, and your perception. Sometimes what you're fearing could not be there. Sometimes there's nothing to fear apart from your fear itself. That's why we're here to give the facts, and the clerics have done some good work to give the facts, so that we can array our fears and get the right information to overcome our fears and get the help that is required right away. So fear is good to some extent, but constant fear, of course, will lead to disease and to a pathology. We'll get into a condition where we're not able to operate properly. And we need to replace our fear with hope and faith, because faith overcomes fear. You have to take a step of faith and get vaccinated and get the help that you're required to have. So fear is one of the emotions that has really dominated people's minds during this COVID. And related to that is also guilt, because of actually people losing their loved ones and having nothing to do. We get into a hopeless situation, a lot of hopelessness going on. You can see a person dying, and sometimes you do all that you can do, and the situation gets very desperate, and the person dies. You get very frustrated and very hopeless. And then there's the issue of grief that comes after that, where you actually process grief. It can be complicated at times when you thought maybe there was something that you didn't do. Some of these are some of the emotions that have been experienced during this COVID. But we are saying we must overcome our fear by getting the right information. And the information is there, that the vaccine is safe, and we don't need to fear excessively. Yes.
Thank you for what you're saying, that fear is legit. It's okay to fear. But then we need to be vigilant that it does not paralyze us.
Yes.
Because life must go on.
Yes.
We are in a pandemic. We are not in a normal kind of a situation, and yet life must go on. Daktari. Yes. And some of the fears, and I think Reverend had highlighted earlier, is caused by the misinformation or distorted information that we have.
Yes.
Can you just help us even deal with some of those? like what's the work of the vaccine, and then how long do you think we're going to be wearing this? Is vaccine like the best option that we have, and all that?
Thank you, Reverend. Yeah, I think it's important, Reverend, for us to demystify this vaccine.
Yeah.
And by the way, when we are talking about the vaccine, we are not talking of a drug out of the blue. The whole idea of developing a vaccine is you are taking a small part of the virus, yeah, and you change it, and then you put it into somebody, into an individual, and then your body interprets as if it has a COVID infection. When it interprets as if there is a COVID infection, it produces certain proteins which we call antibodies. And these antibodies are protective against now the virus. We all know that for somebody who has suffered from COVID, even if they were to suffer a second time or even a third time, the second infection is not as serious as the first time. Because the moment your body gets an infection, it has memory. Yeah? Let's talk of us being wonderfully made by our God. It keeps a memory that something happened in the body. A virus entered into the body and therefore triggered this antibody to be formed. The second time your body encounters the same virus, then it has already mounted immunity against that virus. So it is the same concept that we are actually using to protect the body through the virus, through the vaccine. In other words, we take part of the virus, we alter it a bit, yeah, or we prepare a protein similar to the virus, and then we put it into the body. Then the body starts producing those antibodies. As enough antibodies have been formed, anytime the vaccine comes, then the second disease comes or the second virus, the body is already aware. I have had an experience with this virus and I am ready to protect you against it. That is the whole concept of the virus, of the vaccine. And therefore what we are saying is that these the vaccines, although they may have different names and they may have different methods of administration, the method through which they work is more or less the same. Producing antibodies against the COVID vaccine. And what actually we are, it may be of interest for listeners to know that just before the vaccine was developed, Reverend, do you know we were actually using the blood, or what we call the plasma, of those people who are infected to treat new infections? Yes. And the whole idea is, for those people who have been infected, they have developed those antibodies. If you can carefully pick those antibodies, purify them, make sure that they don't have virus, and then give them to somebody else who has an infection, some of them are recovering almost miraculously. And therefore what actually we are saying is that the vaccine is not a new concept. We are simply using our body's ability to protect itself, to be immunized against diseases, and that is the concept we are using. However, having said that, there are different types of vaccines, and even the method or the modality of giving them is different. For example, now, in our country, the majority of us have received what we call the AstraZeneca, and this is a 2-dose vaccine. The idea is you get the vaccine now, and immediately you get the vaccine, you start producing these antibodies. In fact, do you know that one of the best ways to know that you have received the vaccine and your body is responding to it is to develop symptoms after you have been vaccinated? I know this is another, as the Reverend has clearly elaborated, this is another source of fear. People have been saying, when you get the vaccine, you are going to have headaches, you will feel like you are dying. So this has exacerbated, or it has worsened the fear. But you should know that sometimes when you develop that headache, when you develop that fever, a bit of chills, it is telling you that your body has detected the foreign protein and it is getting ready to protect yourself.
Actually, it reminds me about a friend who told me that he's feeling like dying.
Like feeling like dying.
I remember I had actually almost forced him to take the vaccine.
Yes.
And he was telling me, Reverend, if I die, it's and I think these are some of the fears that you need to array. And as Dr. speaks, I think you address them. The fear of, the real fears are, if I've been through COVID, I've tested positive and I'm recovering. If I take the vaccine, how is it going to work on me?
True.
Am I going to get the blood clots? Am I going to die? Then there's the issue of the age. Because they're saying the younger people, when they take a certain kind of a vaccine, they form blood clots. What is the percentage of those who are getting blood clots? And these are the real fears that people are actually going through.
Infertility.
Infertility, the issue of infertility. The issue of if you're pregnant or you're a nursing mother, should you get the vaccine? How is it going to affect the baby? These are some of the issues that are preventing people from taking the vaccine.
Actually, what we are telling you now, and you can actually take this one, that as late as probably 3 weeks ago, we were not so sure about the role the vaccine will play in pregnant women. And actually, right now, we are encouraging all pregnant women to go for the vaccine. Why? Because unfortunately, pregnant women are more affected by COVID than non-pregnant women, or even by other people, including men. And why is this? Because we know during pregnancy, the immunity of a woman goes down. You are more prone to infections. And and COVID is not an exception. And what actually we are telling them, we have actually realized, or scientifically, it has been proven that the vaccine is even safe to the baby who is in the womb of the woman, pregnant woman. And therefore, what actually we are saying is that a woman who is pregnant can comfortably get that vaccine for her safety and that of the baby. Yes. So again, I know people have been arguing, I mean, if it can affect an adult, then it must be affecting the baby more. But now scientifically we know this is not the case. So what we are telling you is that most of those fears are based on misinformation. People not knowing the truth, yes? And people not understanding the concept behind this vaccine. And what we are saying is that, for example, Reverend has mentioned about the blood clot. Just a bit of statistics, Reverend. It was when people started getting the vaccine, it was noticed that about 37 people developed some blood clot. Now, this was 37 people out of the 17 million people who had been vaccinated in Europe. I don't want to minimize figures and say, because every person matters, but these are people who developed blood clots, but it was also realized they had other problems apart from getting the vaccine. And therefore, when you consider the percentage of people who are affected by these clots, it was almost very minimal. In fact, in our country, I have not seen any recorded case of blood clot. Scientifically, there is no recorded case of blood clot. Not to say that there is no person who has been recorded to have died of the vaccine, or even to have been hospitalized. You may experience those symptoms, chills, fever-like, headaches, but with the time, they will clear. But unfortunately, we are saying people continue dying of COVID, whereas the majority are being protected through the vaccination. And by the way, it doesn't matter which vaccine you get. Of course, the most common right now is AstraZeneca. Hopefully soon and very soon we'll be giving Johnson & Johnson, which is a single dose. But whatever dose you get, and it doesn't matter when you get the first dose, we are saying that for the 2-dose vaccines, you can get the second dose by the 8th week, after 2 months, and sometimes even after 3 months. All along, the moment you get the first dose, protection starts within hours. You are very different from a person who has not been protected. In other words, should your fears really prevent you from getting this protection, which is nearly 100%, that is what we should be asking ourselves. And that is why we are saying, let's continue being vigilant. Another thing, as we had mentioned earlier on, we are in the fourth wave. We don't know whether there will be a fifth wave, a sixth wave. The question is, are we prepared? Are we being vigilant medically and psychologically as we continue with this pandemic? Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful, Dr. I mean, I think that is very helpful.
Yes.
Because as we remain vigilant, we need to be informed.
Yeah. Information is everything.
Information is power.
It's power.
And that's why we are here. And already we have turned the coin to, we are not out of the woods yet, but we're also in a hopeful situation because we have that as one of the solutions that we have, the vaccine. In terms of our psychological support, would you say there is hope?
Yes, I would say there's hope. As Dr. said, we don't know whether another wave is coming. And one of the issues that we are grappling with is uncertainty. Uncertainty about tomorrow, what tomorrow holds for us. And we are afraid what happens tomorrow. But I think COVID has also presented some opportunities that bring a lot of hope to us. And I think right now, one of the things that has happened is a sense of community, because people have information, most people have been affected, and the help is more available than it was previously. You can actually get help because information is there, and people also are concerned about each other. Initially, you not have people come to your place to support you. But right now, when you wear your masks, you can actually work with people and you can support them. Even for those who are suffering from adverse effects, I think the community is more sensitized to the needs of people around them, and there is more help in the community than there before. Then we have also technology. We have a lot of advancement technology. I remember when we were starting off with COVID, some churches were streaming with phones because they never thought technology to be a priority. But there's hope in technology, because now you can be able to interlink with people who are far away from us. And even when you are isolated or you can't go because you are either infected or you cannot move, you're isolated, there is a connection through the technology which is available. You can do a Zoom meeting, you can talk to your parents if you are infected, you can overcome loneliness because there is technology which is working for us. And I think we need to use technology to reach out. Reach out to people, talk to them, because give them hope, because if you can't meet physically, there is hope of meeting through technology. I also see what you're calling the vaccine as also giving us hope, a lot of hope, because at least we know if you get a vaccine, you would get the adverse effects of the pandemic. And I think there is hope there. We need to encourage more and more people to get the vaccine and be sure that they're able to overcome even when they get infected. You know that the people have been saying that, why do I need to get the vaccine? And yet I can still get, but I think the doctor has said it's different when you don't have the vaccine. If you don't have the vaccine, you actually get it worse. But I also think there's also hope in God. The Bible talks about putting on the whole armor of God. And that's part of the hope I want to talk about. Because just as we are taught to put the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, God has given us hope in terms of putting your masks, getting the vaccine, and doing what you need to do. But more hope in God, because He's still there, He's still in control, and He still speaks to us. I actually like this verse in, I think it's Matthew chapter 6, where He talks about the birds of the air. He takes care of them. He's concerned about our lives. So there is hope in God. That even when your finances are diminishing, you've lost your job, you're going through a very difficult crisis in life, you can still look to God and He will make a way for you. He tells us not to fear. Do not fear, do not be afraid. I'll strengthen you, I'll uphold you with my righteous right hand. And I think we need to change the narrative. And start not talking about okay, we have to talk about what is happening, the reality, but you also have to give good stories of people who have gone through COVID, how God came through for them, And we need to hear those stories coming because they give us hope that all is not lost. I know people have been at that point, the verge of the valley of the shadow of death, and God made a way for them. We need to hear those stories coming because they give us hope that God is still healing people, God is still providing, and He's still making a way even now when we don't know what will happen tomorrow. So our hope is in God, even as we get hope from the things around us.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And then, wow, that's very, very, very good to hear.
Yeah.
First, there's hope in God. There's support.
We
are more united now. We are more sensitized about each other. Of course, there's also hope in vaccine and other things. Daktari, you are right in the medical field.
Yes.
Is our health system that bad?
Well, actually we have realized it's not as bad. Previously we know that people would get, and especially with all due respect to our politicians and also probably the very wealthy, every time the one would get a cold or probably any other illness, they would fly out of the country. But I think one positive aspect is that it has also strengthened our healthcare system. We are not as bad, and I think really, with all honesty, I would want to really thank the Kenyan healthcare worker, because it's not just doctors. There are nurses, there are technicians, there are technologists. It has been a concerted effort, and I think part of the reason why we have not had as many deaths as would have been expected is that our healthcare has improved dramatically. I have, for example, at Nairobi West, I have seen probably even out of the 25 patients we are going to have in ICU, at the end of the day, probably only 1 or 2 will die. The majority will walk out of the hospital. And that gives us a lot of hope that actually, even for those people who eventually get sick, the majority are getting well. And that indicates that there is a huge change in terms of our healthcare. I want to thank the government even for the vaccine, the fact that it is available and free. And that is why I cannot understand leverage why somebody cannot get it. I know people get suspicious when they get free things.
Yeah, we are not used to it. Sometimes we even have to pay our wages into what is supposed to be free.
So part of that fear is emanating or is coming from the fact that this vaccine is free. But it is true, it is free, and it is because the government cares about your welfare. But I like what the Reverend has said. Our hope rests in God. Nothing gets out of control. God knows what is happening, why this pandemic is there, for a reason. Yes.
Wonderful. And Reverend.
Yes.
Vigilance. When we talk about vigilance, seems because there's some danger somewhere. But then unakaa rada. How would you summarize that in this situation?
Two things. One, put on the armor. Actually, that's the whole thing. I call it the armor of love, because you need to take care of yourselves and protect your neighbor. And the armor is the mask, physical distance, not overcrowding, and a full round of vaccine, which will protect you and protect your neighbor. Care about yourself, care about other people. Thank you.
Put on love. Care about yourself first of all,
care about other people.
And then you care about other people. Daktari, talking about vigilance in this situation, what would be your summary?
What actually we are saying, we have to be there for each other. Remember what we are saying, that getting the vaccine is not just about yourself. It is actually about loving other people. The fact that you know even if you get infected, you are not going to transmit it to a friend. It simply means that you are actually taking care of a neighbor. And really, we are told everything rests in love your God and love your neighbor. So if you love your neighbor, please go for that jab. Yes, as early as tomorrow. It's available, go for it.
And I'll repeat again. Get the damn vaccine.
That's what I will say, like, get the damn vaccine. Not me, President General telling us that. And yes, we need to remain vigilant, but again, we need to remain cognizant that God is with us. God is walking with us. We are not alone. We don't have to die in fear and anxiety. There is help that is available in the community that we are living in. We can reach out through technology, even if we are not able to move, and all that through other people. And then medically, there are solutions that have been given to us, and we are not so badly off. Actually, it was worse last year. It was bad even the last month. It is getting better. It is getting better, and there is hope. But please remember that our hope is anchored in God, as these two panelists have emphasized, that our hope is basically in God, who loves us, who cares for us, who wants the best for us. Do not give up. Don't lose hope. Thank you very much for remaining tuned to CAC TV and for following this program. We wish you well, be vigilant, but more importantly, trust in God.